naturally. Yeah, 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 yeah. No, I was trying to figure out. Yes. Greetings, greetings, greetings. So, and sometimes it's hard to face the world with your head screwed on. But in time you see, it comes naturally like a hurricane. It's all part of game. It's all part of life. To laugh and to cry. That's right. It's all right. Gotta keep your head up and keep it straight. No time for living a lie. Gotta keep it moving till you get it right. That's right. It's all right. Gotta keep your head up and keep it good. That means we're growing. That's a good thing. It means that we're growing. If the song is growing on you, then we're growing. So put your hands up. Mahava. Greetings, everybody. Nordy, Wayne Ferron, blessings. Audrey Cook, I see you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. To laugh and to cry. If you're just tuning in, you're tuning into Context Matter. Happy New Year, everybody. We're on Reggae Global Radio. And if you're on the YouTube, bless up yourself, leave a comment. I noticed I didn't get the pictures. Nobody sent me any photos. So I guess nobody looking for the context. And if you're on TikTok, you need to go over to YouTube. Don't let no one stand in your way. As we pray for better days, keep it moving, moving to the next. Run oneless. Sandra. No time for living a lie. British one. Just keep your head up, yep. Just keep your head up, yep. That's what they say. But you got to keep your head up. Just keep your head up. You got to keep your head up. Because everything's going to be all right. All right, so, yeah. So, like I said, you're tuned into Context Matters. And I want to say that this week is going to be a very, very, very interesting show. We're going to talk about a lot of things. For instance, I want to know what it is that you think ought to be the way forward for a better society. Well, I'm going to say for a better Jamaica, for people who have left the place where they have come from, the land of your birth with hopes of returning, waking up to news about 14-year-old being murdered by law enforcement, or car accidents, kidnappings, hurt, pain, drama, and overshadowed by all the bad. We miss the good so many times. But to put things in context, here's what I want to say to you. There is a thing where persons must always try to have compassion, empathy, good morals. We speak about it all the time. Integrity. All of these things sound nice, but then the true question. Yes, Sunshine. I'm live on YouTube. So as I try to interact with all platforms, we're tuned into Reggae Global Radio. That's my radio voice, I don't get no night show yet. And yes, I'm the KFC boss, in case you never know. Check it. Anyway, yeah, so trying to find the balance and say, if we weigh the good with the bad, where are we?
how can we communicate? Delroy, big up yourself. Audrey Cook, big up yourself. You see, I'm doing the big ups at the same time, and learning how to multitask. So 2024, we're gonna multitask. We're gonna talk about the bad, but accentuate the positives, the goods, and see if we can affirm something better. Nordy says, well, if people not going good, you know what to do. Andre 3000. Yeah, hey, anybody not going good? I don't call names, when I call names, people have a problem with it. But here's the key thing. I'm gonna set the context for this, and this week I'm not putting up any pictures, because let me tell you something. It appears that when I find a nice, good context and showing you that it actually matters, the only thing I'm gonna leave with is pictures and say I sat over him show talking about Miss Fulcrum and her cat. Not gonna say the other word that she liked to say. I'm gonna say it that way, and I want to start off with it's not a poem, it was a statement, but it turned into a poem. And I'm going to read the poem and show you how we can go on and on. And I am going to include all minorities, and I'm going to be a bit controversial. And this week, you see, while we're on the show and while we're on the show and while we're doing this thing now, we need to ensure that and for anybody who is on the YouTube, if there are two streams, I know that we are live on YouTube. I am seeing people and interacting with them. So if there are two of them, it could be from my technological advanced deficiencies that would have caused probably two of them to make. Keisha McKenzie, somebody says, okay, I'm not even going to respond to that. That's what I was going to say this time. It cannot be that when you come into the comments, it's a free space, so you're allowed to say anything you want. So if you have something on your chest that you want to say to me or about me, feel free. I promise you, you will not be blocked. This is the space to get it off your chest so you can move on and be a productive member of any society that you are in. But I am going to use the poem First They Came, and it was by Martin Niemöller. I hope I said that right. And we are going to think of every single minority and think about it. And I'm going to say something in that. It may very well come across controversial. You know what I want to know? I want to know why it is that Selector Princess dead in with laughing right now. What is going on? What did I miss? Yes, I'm gonna repeat it, Thug Boss. My technological advanced deficiencies, which would have caused me to probably create two streams, so people wait on the other one to come on while there's one on. But we fix those things and make it up as we go. So take the context into what I'm saying. Somebody's asking if I still do law. Depends on what context. We're talking about context matters now. Asking about law, you have to ask between the hours of 9 to 5. When 5 o'clock come, we're dealing with the context. All right, blessings. So, the Martin Niemöller poem, and I hope I'm saying that right. Yes, British one. It's 2024, but work with me. If you never take me serious in life ever, I'm gonna do a rendition, a Shakespearean rendition of this poem, and I'm going to use my best literary skills to bring across the emotive and all the literary tools that can get you to understand where I'm going with this before I go into what is known as the apology. I set in context, because I bet I say when this year done, I got so bright, with JPS I got vex and all light companies I got wonder where really I go on. So me say, so me I give it to you so you understand. All right, let's go. Let's start now. The poem. After I read the poem, I'm going to substitute to prove the point I'm making. First, they came. So first they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I'm not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me. There was no one left to speak out for me. That's where it ends. And that's the silence. Yeah. Tell me what you think. Hmm. Hmm. No thoughts? No one? Was I that good? All right, well, you can always give me an honorary Oscar. They issue those. Carlos, I must be careful to of my Shakespearean comments because I'm black. Wow, that's deep. Um, mhm. Delroy, that's a good one. I'm going to invite you on the show. I saw a thing where okay, thought so. Yeah, and he went to court and basically paid a fine, and the fine which he paid was $6,000. And I said, wow, the cost and the price that you pay for free speech, and then the argument about you know whether or not it's being whittled away and how laws are made and what we should be regulating is just interesting. But I say it in I only raised it because it was Delroy Henry said I should invite my viewers and my listeners to be respectful in the comment sections because words, while they can be erased, I guess the effect of it remains a stain like curry. So those of you who like curry, I know how it if it drop on your white shirt, how it's difficult. Um, you don't use it. Somebody said, "Is there a price? A price for?" All right. So when they came for you, and we're gonna talk about that. So the key thing is that when they came for me, there was no one left to speak out for me because they already came for somebody else. So you see, while it is that they come for people and you don't speak out, try this one. When they come for the young men in Jamaica in the state of emergency and no one speak out for them, they just get locked away. And then suddenly they came for the politicians, but the good thing is they have the Minister of Constitutional Affairs to speak out for them. So there must always be a voice to speak out for people because they come for the Rastas, and in Jamaica, if you're not careful, they can trim you, and then they say you pull your hair out yourself. Or you can go to a school and they say, well, you're not a Rastafarian, but you have dreadlocks, so you can't go to school. Or you might be a Rasta and you use words that people don't like, and they said, you know something? You must go live a bush and walk barefoot. You shouldn't be in their professions. Things like that. And no one speaks out. But that's not true because it is the power of speaking out and it's the power of the use of platforms that is important. Because let me tell you something. Um, I won't make much comment, but to say that we must not be selective in the things that we wish to regulate. We must hold court and we must have our trials. We must hold our moral fabric to not be a selective exercise. Um, Big up yourself, Carol Allen, Audrey Cook. I see you. And it's all right. When you come for me, just remember you're coming for God. So that's the thing. Anchor your existence in a higher power. That higher power is God. Whatever you identify the higher power is. In context, we're saying that higher power is God. Um, so when they came for, I see the diaspora speaking out, and they come in for the diaspora and saying you're not the diaspora or the diaspora. And then I heard that there was a protest going to happen in Miami, and people are wondering, well, what would be the purpose of this? Because they're not in Jamaica. Why are they so concerned about the matters and affairs of Jamaica, notwithstanding that they were born there and albeit they are in other countries? And so let us use the youth of Jamaica and the persons living in Jamaica to represent the diaspora's interests in Jamaica and outside of Jamaica. A very interesting concept, but that's where context comes in. And so that brings us to the word. See if I can find it. Excuse me, pass my cellular phone. Make me find the word I'm looking for. The word it sounds like. You ever realize that Bounty Killer use Hall now hear the angels sing to do that song? But you never know that. But now you know. The word is deference. And it is submission and respect. Polite, submission, and respect. He addressed her with the deference due to age. It is respectfulness. What? I don't know. All right, let me see. Right. So Blessings, Kenneth Sterling, Donna Whitaker. So the word is deference. No. Why am I raising deference? Well, I'm going to address it. I'm going to give you context. When people are doing their job, the true question is you should give them deference because they know the job that they're doing. You should respect the authority that they have and give them the benefit of the doubt. So when it is that people and persons are in their jobs and they're doing their jobs, for instance, your Minister of National Security and your Commissioner of Police, they're fighting crime and they know what they're doing. So you give them deference because we put in context, or we're putting the word, we're using the word in context. Or when it is that if the medical association is disciplining their a doctor, and the doctor wishes to appeal, then they go to the court of appeal. The court of appeal is to give the medical association deference because the doctors themselves have the expertise to know what the standard is for a doctor, a medical doctor. So the court is to give deference. Similarly, I tell you this every week. I'm a very uneducated man in terms of going into the kitchen. So some you can't cook down them from me, or you're gonna have problems. You're gonna have running belly. So do you? I would definitely give deference to somebody who can cook, to a chef. So if the chef organization and society of Jamaica decides that some chef is cooking crab down here at Circle and not washing them hands, and then selling non-wash hand crabs, then obviously when the council of chefs convene and say that she cannot or he should not ought not continue to cook, if the chef who don't wash their hands after you know, you get a little you feel a little belly pain, and you get a beer and put a little salt, and then you drink, and you go, "Oops," you know, "Oops." All right, yeah. And then while you're making your plea in mitigation, they find that you ought not to return. Um, you have to the question is, if she appeals or he appeals to the court of appeal, assuming that the jurisdiction lies within the courts who are judges, they should give the chefs council, who are the experts in that field, deference in the decisions they make and not interfere with it. Well, then one would ask, what about a situation where the judges are more experienced than, let's say, I don't like to talk about them, but let's say, like, for instance, the lawyers say, well, we don't like you because you chat too much and your mouth is filthy, and things like that, and therefore you shouldn't be a part of um our profession because you are everything that is bad. um and therefore they punish you and sentence you to death because they don't want you to live naturally. And then the question would be, should that the judges who are more experienced, who are also lawyers but are superior because they have now become the judiciary, cloaked in the as the bastion of fairness and protector, the custos morum of the Constitution, should they give deference to lawyers who are not judges, lawyers who are incapable of being cloaked in lacking bias or not including bias, who can, because of judicial independence, as opposed to tribunals who don't have that independence and can be swayed by friendingism and these things. In context, should you give deference and respect to decisions that may appear to be excessive, ludicrous, or unfair? And we be in context. I'm not talking about any particular thing. I'm talking about the concept of deference. And so we have to think about that, because sometimes when people make decisions and they make it within the law, people get vexed. So I'm just going to say this and run away with it. I'm in Jamaica and I'm passing, and there's this big thing because in the local space, there's somebody that the Constitution says is responsible for prosecuting, and that person has wide powers under Section 94. So that person comes out today, and I'm talking to foreign people, so I'm not talking to local people. But if you're there, you know, but they might not know. So I'm just talking generally to the world at large. So there's somebody in the local space, and they pretty much said, I'm not going to prosecute somebody for corruption, albeit it was corruption, but the time passed because the law says so. Listen, I'm giving you context. The law says the time has passed. Therefore, the jurisdiction is gone. Do you give that deference? My position on that is yes. And if you don't like it, what ought to be done is to close the gaps in the law, fix the loopholes in the law, because when somebody is right, irrespective of how you feel, you have to respect and give deference, especially when the powers that are used are within the powers that they have. Now, Natalie Mullins says people in other countries protest about what takes place in their countries, and a lot of Jamaicans are mentally blind. They're not mentally blind, they just don't want nobody pulling them out of from under their beds and telling them to apologize, or charging them $500,000 or $6,000 or money that they don't have. Or they might just leave 13 and turn 14 and you get a bullet in your head because you chat too much. So I don't think that takes place in other countries. So maybe that's what it is. But yes, Carl, statute of limitations, just using and respect for the law. So no matter who you are, anytime I say you respect the law, Um, I love that. So anywhere in the world where there's where the rule of law is upheld, and it works, I love that. And that is what deference is about when it need when when it comes up. That is what the idea of deference is about. And if it's not there, Loxley, big up yourself. Yes, Portia's grandson, right here, right here. Respect. Um, yeah. So that is the context I'm speaking about. So the word of the day is deference, and I invite people to not be afraid to reject deference when people when you are more experienced. So when I get up and cook and I said, listen, I don't wash the rice, and I don't put vinegar on chicken. I just turn on pot and cook, and I don't put seasoning. And when I finish, whether it tastes like KFC or not, that is the cooking. I mean, I want to say body. No want a body say nothing. When somebody's dissatisfied with my cooking and makes an appeal to the chef society, who is the arbiter or the judges of what the standard of cooking should be, I don't know what deference they're going to give to me for saying that you cannot complain about something. And so that's one of the things that I invite you to do. I invite you to think about. And I don't know if the conversation that nice, but if you're on TikTok and you're not tapping the screen and sharing the live, you're not doing your job. And if you're on Reggae Global Radio and you're not shouting me out in the comment section, I know that you're not listening. But if you're driving, just drive, don't wink and don't blink. Because if you drive and blink, your tire might get an ink. Yeah. I just love the rhyming, but you do get it. So that is it. So when they came for us, what you must do is not give deference to illegality, not give deference to bullyism, not give deference to that which is immoral, that which is in a breach of the law, and that which is just oppressive. Always speak out for what is right. Always stand up for the next person, because it could be you. So in Miami, where the diaspora, whichever one you like, is saying that they're going to protest because they don't like what's happening in the Jamaican space. I mean, a lot is happening one time, you look at the news and there's people switching parties and allegiance and internal conflict between parties. There are people who get married after they beat the woman and still a politician and then returning to the party. And all of this is happening in real time. There's like a school where the principal is molesting the students and there's nothing happening. And then there's a disabled school that couldn't open because it never get government funding, and there's people hungry, and there's so much things going on. And it's just, what are the things that we are focused on? Like, I'll propose this. We complain about crime all places in the world, but when you go some places, there is just not the type of crime that takes place in Jamaica, which is the violent crime. I call it the absolute crime, because it's one thing for thief, lick a mango off of the tree, that's periodical larceny, but you still have life. As opposed to you rape somebody, molest somebody, sexual autonomy is fractured, not so nice. Or the ultimate one, death. You kill somebody, sorry can never buy soldier Larry, much less unalive somebody. So I'm putting that in my submission to say maybe really the focus we should think about is the violent crimes in any form. And as we want to be a little bit more serious about how we handle crime in that particular thing, we may probably want to rethink the stigma behind classification of crime, including charging somebody 6, 8, 9 things, minor offenses and giving them 6 convictions, and then enjoying walking around saying how the person is a convict because you didn't like that they curse a bad word. And words really aren't bad. It's just your vocabulary is probably lacking and you don't know the context or interpretation. But Miss Fulcrum is white, so every time she says that she's looking for a pussy, um, people understand the context that she says it in. When Isaac says it, somebody's going to say, oh, he's a lawyer. How dare him use that word? But it's an English word. So you'll hear me use it all the time because I'm making reference to cat. Where's your mind? That is the context that we're thinking of. So we start there. And we balance the thing like that. Now, that being said, it is only right that this week I talk to you guys about, let me tell you something. This Yasso is where them say we really know say it's not yesterday biasness and trying to uphold morals and bullyism and intimidation. It's not yesterday them things that go on in the world, you know, them things that go on from time memorial, they would say. Yeah. Believe me when I tell you that. So don't laugh when I said this. There are when you go into court a lot of time, no litigants, defendants, they go in, the defendant always go in and they say, no, yes, Melanie Bowen, that's what we're talking about. Pussy. Meow. What do you think we were talking about? Good evening. Yeah, the thing that we talk about now, the apology. It's a beautiful thing. It's not, it didn't happen just yesterday. And so Socrates, we spoke about Plato, we spoke about Aristotle, and Plato was taught by Aristotle, and Aristotle taught Plato was taught by Socrates, and Plato taught Aristotle. 1, 2, 3. So I dealt with Plato, and then I dealt with Aristotle last week and his metaphysics. You'll be hearing these things around, but I guarantee you what I do is to ensure that blessings, Angela Palmer. What I do is to ensure that we are going on a journey and finding context, but also uploading ourselves with knowledge so that we can go around and speak about simpletons. So I take this before we start this because we talk about when you enter Vivi, you're very observant. When we speak about platforms and we speak about the use of the platforms in the context, I want you to understand. Yes, Joe Blogs, I want you to understand this. Every day that we get up, we wake up with a blank slate. I want us to appreciate that. And I want you to say to yourself, you know, I woke up this morning with a blank slate and giving myself the opportunity to educate myself in whatever comes my way. So every time that you click context matters, do appreciate that in the context of the material that some of us, sometimes even myself, some words, some things that people respond. And that's why I love to teach, because I learn something new every time I embark on teaching. And so the context that we are in here on this platform is to recognize immediately that you are uneducated in the topic for the week. And to appreciate that when somebody uses the English language, the interpretation and the context in which you receive it will determine whether or not you are offended or not. So if I say that we are we are now dealing with the apology. Plato wrote it, an observation as he witnessed the trial of his teacher, his master, titled The Apology. And if this is the first time you're hearing it, then you are uneducated in matters of the apology and should never be offended. And in fact, should be happy to tell somebody, I walked into a room to which I was uneducated in the state of affairs of what was going on. I certainly am uneducated when I wake up and I hear that the Integrity Commission is meddling and abusing and picking on politicians. And the politicians are people and should not be abused. Cute. We learn something every day. Well, work with me. The apology. And I'm going into the material. It was written by Plato, but this, I promise you, this is all about Socrates, Roman numeral 1. So it's the 1st century. Let's go. I do not know, men of Athens, how my accusers affected you. As for me, I was almost carried away in spite of myself. So persuasively did they speak. And yet, hardly anything of what they said is true. I'm going to break in, I'm going to give you context, because when people have the platform, you know what them do? Them just take the words that them want and them just sum it up nicely to make you look like a demon. Set it up nicely to make it look like the worst of the worst. It's just like media. They'll just soundbite you to death and make you look horrible. So they'll tell you they won't speak the truth when they're rephrasing the things you say. Then they'll say you said something, and then when people know you never said it, they say, well, you quoted it and you must have meant it. Things like that. So of the many lies they told, one in particular surprised me. Namely, that you should be careful not to be deceived by an accomplished speaker like me, that they were not ashamed to be immediately proved wrong by the facts, when I show myself not to be an accomplished speaker at all. A mere person, not accomplished, I thought was most shameless on their part, unless indeed they call an accomplished speaker the man who speaks the truth. Because I can tell you this, if it's a man who speaks the truth is an accomplished speaker, although they're talking about Socrates, Isaac is your man. Yeah. So, if they mean that, I would agree that I am a narrator, but not after their manner, for indeed, as I say, particularly, or practically, nothing they said was true. From me, you will hear the whole truth, though not by Zeus, gentlemen, expressed in embroidered and styled phrases like theirs, but things spoken at random and expressed in the first words that come to mind. For I put my trust in the justice of what I say, and I let none of you expect anything else. It would not be fitting at my age, as it might be for a young man, to toy with words when I appear before you. Here's somebody. Listen, it's good for what's a good thing, word. Somebody say Isaac the thespian. Whatever rhyme with thespians, people gonna say I was on Isaac platform and them over there call him. Well, context really do matter. So one thing I do ask and beg of you, gentlemen, if you hear me making my defense in the same kind of language as I am accustomed to use in the marketplace, by the bankers' tables, where many of you have heard me, and elsewhere, do not be surprised or create a disturbance on that account. The position is this. This is my first appearance in a law court at the age of 70. I am therefore simply a stranger to the manner of speaking here. Just as if I were really a stranger, you would certainly excuse me if I spoke in that dialect and manner in which I had been brought up. So too my present request seems a just one, for you to pay no attention to my manner of speech, be it better or worse, but to concentrate your attention on whether what I say is just or not. For For the excellence of a judge lies in this, as that of a speaker lies in telling the truth. Now, I'm going to stop there. Because you see, when there are conversations anywhere, whether in the marketplace, whether in the church, there's a church where somebody said, "Have you ever been swallowed up? Have you been swallowed up? Swallowed up?" I don't, yeah, something like that. In a church, people are asking you, "Have you ever been swallowed up?" But I guess swallowed up and gobbled up by the Holy Spirit. Yeah. And then they said it's the context, and then they said there's a time and place for everything. But if you put everything to audio and you don't know where it is, what is important for you to appreciate is the content, the context, and where the truth lies. You will communicate. And if you go to a shop where them doing hairdressing and this and this, and I'm not talking about the uptown shops, and I know we're on Reggae Global Radio and YouTube, so we're international. So I know a lot of people, you go to the hair salon and y'all go to the barber shop and things like that. But you go into the Jamaican space, you'll go places where you'll go Pinky's hair salon. And while them doing your hair and them a cream and them a do them thing, I say, Pinky, I tell you that. And it sounds like Pink Wall and this and that and this and that. The thing is, when the person is communicating, there is a language. It's almost like trying to explain to people that if you are in a relationship, you must understand the love language of the person you're in a relationship with. Because if you don't have that language, you will fail to communicate. And you will say, "Oh, something wrong with me, something wrong with them." But no, it's never public. It's never you. It's always me. I'll take the blame. The point is, Socrates, one of the most erudite human and most famous human being. In fact, I'll say Socrates was right after Jesus, but then Bob Marley came, so him kind of make Socrates knock off, and then Selassie, and then enough holy people, so people forget about Socrates. Except Socrates is a gadfly. We'll get to that. But he's making it clear. Don't come expect me to come up in your courthouse and come speaky spokey and speak the language that make you think you're high and mighty. I speak so the people can understand. And people, Socrates said that, not me. So when you speak the language of the people, the nobles will be offended. The nobles who can't communicate with the people do not like when you communicate with the people and speak their language. Including if you speak in the language of the people and the language of the people just happen to be popcorn. I'm say the world on a level, because popcorn language, though albeit colorful and directed at a commissioner of police or whatever, are just $6,000. You know how much big deal and how much piece of KFC you can get with $6,000? Them deprive the man of some chicken. And so it was justified for him to open a GoFundMe account to pay that very excessive fine. But I'm going to leave it at there. Socrates goes on and says, one thing I do ask and beg of you, gentlemen, because those days they never allowed ladies in the arena of that, because the men of Athens were very misogynistic. Very, 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 very. If it was no, they would just put them all where they put R. Kelly and those people. So if you hear me making my defense in the same kind of language as I am accustomed to use in the marketplace by the bankers' tables where many of you have heard me and elsewhere, do not be surprised or create a disturbance on that account. The position is this. As he said, it's my first appearance in the law court. And he says, watch me, because I'm not telling lies. I'm telling the truth. He says, it is the right for me, gentlemen, to defend myself first against the first lying accusations made against me and my first accusers, and then against the later accusations and the later accusers. So you see, sometimes they try you 1 year and them try the next year. It's nothing new, because when you are there educating people and you are uplifting people and telling persons that you are equal and that you have a right to be a human being, you're going to have many trials, tribulations as well. So he says, there have been many who have accused me to you for many years now, and none of their accusations are true. None. Rubbish. These I fear much more than I fear Anytus and his friends, though they too are formidable. These earlier ones, however, are more so gentlemen. They got a hold of most of you from childhood and persuaded you and accused me quite falsely, saying that there is a man called Socrates, a wise man, a student of all things in the sky and below the earth, who make the worst arguments stronger. Those who spread that rumor, gentlemen, are many dangerous accusers. They are my dangerous accusers. For their hearers believe that those who study these things do not even believe in the gods. Moreover, the accusers are numerous and have been at it a long time. Also, they spoke to you at an age when you would most readily believe them. Some of you being children and adolescents, and they won their case by default, as there was no defense. So sometimes your accusers come and they want to cut off your head, and you say, listen, I will not defend the defenseless. Sometimes the indefensible you don't defend. So you said, although you're not guilty, you just do not contest it. And then it's a matter for a court to determine, like Socrates says, you adjudicate guilty, but you know, no opportunity, no contesting. You're not contesting something because you don't even know if it is in law something that you can defend. There was simply no defense. What is most absurd in all this is that one cannot even know or mention their names unless one of them is a writer of comedies. So those who maliciously and slanderously persuaded you, who also, when persuaded themselves, then persuaded others, all those are most difficult to deal with. One cannot bring one of them into court or refute him, or one must simply fight with shadows, as it were, in making one's defense and cross-examine when no one answers. I want you to realize, too, that my accusers are of two kinds. Those who have accused me recently and the old ones I mentioned. And to think that I must first defend myself against the latter, those are the old ones. For you have also heard their accusations first, and to a much greater extent than the more recent. So very well then, I must surely defend myself and attempt to uproot from your minds in so short a time the slander that has resided there so long. So I wish this may happen if it is in any way better for you and me, and that my defense may be successful. But I think this is very difficult, and I am fully aware of how difficult it is. Even so, let the matter proceed as the God may wish, but I must obey the law and make my defense. People, I just want to say this. I want you to think about trying to defend the indefensible. And indefensible not because there isn't a defense in law, but it would be a waste of time when persons are on a mission to do what they are doing. When narratives are being created, when circumstances are being set, and persons are definitely trying to hold on. Selector Princess says, say patwa. No, but I'm speaking the language of the nobles. If you don't speak the language of the nobles, you can get in trouble. That's the problem. But when we're thinking about what Socrates is going through, you can hear his effort important it was for him to ensure that he's articulating himself and saying, allow me to prove my point, that this is all if it was social media in this day, we said this is a ad campaign, a social media campaign to make me inferior and disliked in the eyes of the public, because the public is influenced by me, and the powers that be do not like that. This is what Socrates is saying. If it has any similarities to somebody it is just ironic, to say the least. So let us then take up the case from its beginning. What is the accusation from which arose the slander in which Mellitus trusted when he wrote out the charge against me? What did they say when they slandered me? I must, as if they were my actual prosecutors, read the affidavit they would have sworn. It goes a little something like this. Socrates is guilty of wrongdoing in that he busies himself studying things in the sky and below the earth. He makes the worse into the stronger argument, and he teaches these same things to others. You have seen this yourself in the comedy of Aristophanes. As Socrates swinging about there, saying he was walking on air and talking a lot of other nonsense about things of which I know nothing at all. I do not speak in contempt of such knowledge, if someone is wise in these things, lest Mellitus brings more cases against me. But gentlemen, I have no part in it, and on this point I call upon the majority of you as witnesses. I think it is right that all those of who have heard me conversing, and many of you should tell each other, if any one of you has ever heard me discussing such subjects to any extent at all. From this you will learn that the other things said about me by the majority are of the same kind. Not one of them is true. And if you have heard from anyone, I undertake to teach people and charge a fee for it. That not true either. In other words, when I'm giving my knowledge, I do it for free. That's what Socrates just said. Yet I think it a fine thing to be able to teach people, as Georgius of Leontini does, and Prodicus of Ceos, and Hippias of Elis. Each of these men can go to any city and persuade the young, who can keep company with any one of their own fellow citizens they want without paying, to leave the company of these to join with themselves, pay them a fee, and be grateful to them besides. Indeed, I learned that there is another wise man from Paros who is visiting us, for I met a man who has spent more money on sophists than everybody else put together, Callias, the son of Hipponicus. So I asked him, he has 2 sons, Callias? I said, if your sons were colts or calves, we could find and engage a supervisor for them who would make them excel in their proper qualities, some horse breeder or farmer. Now, since they are men, whom do you have in mind to supervise them? Who is an expert in this kind of excellence, the human and social kind? I think you must have given thought to this since you have your sons. Is there such a person, I asked, or is there not? Certainly there is, he said. Who is he? I asked. Comes from Paris, and his fee is 5 minas. I thought Evidus a happy man if he really possesses this art and teaches for a moderate fee. Certainly I would pride and prim myself if I had this knowledge, but I do not have it, gentlemen. So, what is happening here is Socrates being accused of charging people to teach, but he's saying, no, somebody come from the outside and can charge people to teach, and nobody have a problem with that. And I guess he has the knowledge while Socrates is still trying to gain it. Now, one of you might perhaps interrupt me and say, but Socrates, what is your occupation? From where have these slanders come? For surely if you did not busy yourself with something out of the common, all these rumors and talks would not have arisen unless you did something other than most people. So tell us, what is this, that we may not speak inadvisedly about you? Anyone who says that seems to be right, and I will try to show you what has caused this reputation and slander. Listen then. Perhaps some of you will think I am jesting, but be sure that all that I shall say is true. What has caused my reputation is none other than a certain kind of wisdom. What kind of wisdom? Human wisdom. Perhaps it may be that I really possess this, while those whom I mentioned just now are wise with a wisdom more than humans. Context. Else I cannot explain it, for I certainly do not possess it, and whoever says I do is lying and speaks to slander me. Do not create a disturbance, gentlemen. Even if you think I am boasting, for the story I shall tell does not originate with me, but I will refer you to a trustworthy source. I shall call upon the God at Delphi as witness to the existence and nature of my wisdom, if it be such. You know Cherephon, he was my friend from youth and the friend of most of you, as he shared your exile and your return. You surely know the kind of man he was, how impulsive in any course of action. He went to Delphi at one time and ventured to ask the oracle. As I say, gentlemen, do not create a disturbance. He asked if any man was wiser than I, and the python replied that no one was wise. Chaerephon is dead, but his brother will testify to you about this. That's a whole lot of hearsay going on. But here's the thing, and let me put context to this. When persons are going to use propaganda to put a narrative about you into the space, they are slandering you. Some of them, especially in the modern dispensation, will hide behind the social media, will make fake accounts with a view to influence the minds of people, so that you will reject betterment if knowledge is being imputed or knowledge is being put to you that can change your life. They use this technique to simply attack the person ad hominem. I keep saying it, and they make this tool, this logical tool, or that which is illogical, to cause persons to stray from the central issue. So that I invite you to say that anytime, no matter what it is, if people are discussing about banana chips and cheese tricks, to find out the facts and to conclude on the facts, and not to say that it's Alice making the cheese tricks, and because you not eat from Alice, because what she did with our crabs at Hero Circle would cause you to only purchase banana in the future, because Alice mud up the cheese tricks. No pun intended. That's the kind of balancing that Socrates is asking you to view, to check. And then when you do that, you can make an assessment to say that, I do agree that when persons are trying to paint you in a particular light, that they will use slander and they will tell lies with a view to damage your reputation. That sometimes a damaged reputation, which is one of the reasons why the parliamentarians the names aren't revealed, because of the damage to representation, to reputation. And what would flow from that is their reputations would be damaged. They especially people would go around to say you don't have any integrity, and they don't define what integrity actually is, which is about dishonesty. And then you're not thieving anything, but they use those things and say you did this or that, and the result is the result pretty much is is a damaged reputation, to which the only thing that can come is an apology. And we know sorry can't help Soldier Larry. We talk about that all the time. Good? All right. So after that, we are now up on the commercial break. Is Starlink, I have it right here, so I don't know what's going on. See it here, right in my hand. So me don't know what's going on. But we are right at the top of the hour. We're at the commercial break, and we'll be back in 5. So during the meantime, while you are tuned into Reggae Global Radio and we are experiencing the commercial break, gonna read some of the comments and see how you're thinking and if you're following me, because I know once again it is heavy stuff, but let us not be discouraged. Let us try to appreciate that sorry don't buy Soja Larry. And so if we live our lives without having to apologize, I'm not talking about the generic one where you're forced to do so, but to be able to freely express yourself, then you'll understand and appreciate what it is that I'm saying. So we'll be back. It depends. He has a right to defend his government. He's in the government. Hey, how you doing, Laurie? Yeah. And so interesting. Let me find this thing now. Where you gotta do what you gotta do to keep warm. Yeah, here it is. What? Where you gotta do what you gotta do. Stop that. A man drinking water and mind him. Yeah, drink water and mind my business. That's so difficult to do. Not when so many things going on. I did a Marvin Gaye. What's going on? There are too many of you dying. Brother, brother, brother. Uh-oh. I see PDTV News Jamaica. I wonder if that is Andrea who has set a rat trap right there. So I wonder. Big up yourself, Miss B. All right, so let's get back to it. If we take the case from the beginning, and speak. So if you're back and if you're just joining us, we are looking at Socrates' apology. Where the rest of the poems is only one with the poem that we spoke about was They Came For Us. That's the one we deal with. And I invite persons to think of the other minorities and substitute those minorities and see if when those persons are attacked. I think I'd said it. When the politicians are being attacked by the Integrity Commission, the good thing is that the Minister of Constitutional Affairs was there to speak out for them. And so when the persons are when the Jews are attacked, people don't say anything. When the communists are attacked, the people don't say anything. So we were very happy to see that as the politicians are being attacked, that the Minister of Constitutional Affairs spoke out and said, "Don't come for me." That type of thing. So yes, je suis, like French. You see, when you put it in context, in an ideal world, whenever people come for a particular group, we expect that if they come for us, we are going to, somebody will be there to defend. If you used to watch cartoon, they had a thing as a Defenders of the Earth, Captain Planet, Voltron, you name it. They all was there. All right, so we are going to pick up, and I want to go from he wants to speak about the origin of slander. So he says, consider this, what I tell you, because I would inform you about the origin of the slander. When I heard of this reply, I asked myself, whatever does the God mean? What is his riddle? I'm very conscious that I am not wise at all. What then does he mean by saying that I am the wisest? For surely he does not lie. It is not legitimate for him to do so. For a long time I was at a loss as to his meaning. Then I very reluctantly turned to some such investigation as this. I went to one of those reputed wise, thinking that there, if anywhere, I could refute the oracle and say to it, this man is wiser than I, but you said I was. Then when I examined this man, there is no need for me to tell you his name. He was one of our public men. My experience was something like this. I thought that he appeared wise to many people and especially to himself, but he was not. I then tried to show him that he thought himself wise, but that he was not. As a result, he came to dislike me, and so did many of the bystanders. So I withdrew and thought to myself, I am wiser than this man. It is likely that neither of us knows anything worthwhile, but he thinks he knows something. So when he does not, whereas when I do not know, neither do I think I know, so I am likely to be wiser than he to this small extent, that I do not think I know what I do not know. After this, I approached another man, one of those I thought to be wiser than he, and I thought the same thing, and so I came to be disliked by both him and by many others. Yes, do I want you to see where we're going with that? Because there are people who will simply dislike you because you're showing up their deficiencies, showing up the fallacies, and as well as showing up the reality that they think they're bright, but they're really not bright. Or they're doing things that they are not supposed to be doing. And when you put it out, yeah, all right. So I speak about the Cat Williams. 2024 is the year of Cat Williams, the Cat Williams year, meaning the year of speaking the truth. So so Joe Forbes is here and saying, you call somebody an idiot. If you are an idiot, you shouldn't be offended. If people call you that which you are, you shouldn't be offended. And yes, I do understand that there's a time and place for everything, and you can't go around saying everything on anybody, but it's almost like the truth is the truth, but it's not an offense. Offensive, yes, but it's not an offense. When people go out of their way to make offenses for things because you're telling the truth, like it would be so ironic that Bob Marley said, me throw my can, but me not call no foul. Yeah. Sometimes when you speak the truth, the can get through, or you step on the can. So sometimes you not for throw the can. Some people have it on them foot, and you step on it, and then it now becomes a problem. So after that, he said, I proceeded systematically, and I realized to my sorrow and alarm that I was getting unpopular. But I thought that I must attach the greatest importance to the God's oracle. So I must go to all those who had any reputation for knowledge to examine its meaning. And by the dog, gentlemen of the jury, for I must tell you the truth, I experienced something like this in my investigation in the service of the God. I found that those who had the highest reputation were nearly the most deficient. And let me read that back. by the gods. I found that those who had the highest reputation were nearly the most deficient, while those who were thought to be inferior were more knowledgeable. I must give you an account of my journeyings as if they were labors of I had undertaken to prove the oracle irrefutable. After the politicians, I went to the poets, the writers, the writers of tragedy, and Dithriams, and the others, intending in their case to catch myself being more ignorant than they. So I took up the poems with which they seem to have taken most trouble and asked them what they meant. So this is we're talking about context matters. Tell us the context. Tell us what you mean. Interpret it for us. Good? In order that I might at the same time learn something from them. I am ashamed to tell you the truth, gentlemen, but I must. Almost all the bystanders might have explained the poems better than their authors could. I soon realized that poets do not compose their poems with knowledge, but by some inborn talent and by inspiration. Like seers and prophets who also say many fine things without any understanding of what they say. The poets seem to me to have had a similar experience. At the same time, I saw that because of their poetry. So they thought themselves very wise men in other respects, which they were not. So there again, I withdrew, thinking that I had the same advantage over them as I had over the politicians. So let's put this in context now, and I want you to just appreciate this. You may have a God-given talent. You may have the ability to craft poetry and rhyme and alliteration, and it sounds so good that you put it together, and then people say, oh, you're such a genius, and then because of that you think you can go cook KFC. I don't even know the 13 herbs and spices, and somebody might say 16, but I can tell you this, or whatever it is, you do not know the secret recipe, and because you can write little poetry, you think you know everything. So it is that you even when you go to the university and you graduate with bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, if you don't know the area, you're uneducated. And Socrates, this is from before Christ. Socrates is saying, all right, let me go around and let me be the dunce and let me be the idiot and go to the wisest men and tackle them, challenge them, because they come. Sometimes they will make the law. So he goes to the politicians first and he says, tell me what you mean when you make this law. And them can't tell you. And so they said, we're going to have a constitution and we are going to do it over for ourselves. And we're going to have a president. And somebody says, what does the president do? And they say, let's get back to you. We're going to get back to you. And he said, we finished with the politicians. Let's go to the poetry. And the poetry come and they said, oh, sigh no more, lady, sigh no more. Men were deceivers ever. One foot in sea and one on shore, to all things constant never. But sigh not so, but let them go, and be obliged and bonny, and turn all your songs into songs of woe, and say, hey, nonny, nonny. And I said, hold on. Later on, some hip-hop man said, lottie dottie, we like to party, we don't smoke. But then somebody said, you're so genius, how did you come up with that? Well, I can tell you this, them just smoke some good weed. And when the weed lick them and the music hit them, them feel no pain, and them give you some R. Kelly music. It has no magic and no intellectual ability behind it. And you say, come and sign this, and then sometimes they can't read and write. Doesn't mean that they're not a genius and they're God-given talents. And they go to the Bible, it said, Jesus said the story of Jesus and the talents. But what it means is we must know content, context, and that is why it matters. Because we have persons, and if we talk about governance, where somebody would have they said, oh, so and so has graduated from Harvard and Oxford, and they have done medical sciences and brain surgeon, and they are erudite in this, and they're doctor, and they've performed several brain surgeries and open heart surgery, and they cured the person, and the person is alive. And they become a politician, and then they're the minister of national security. And then crime is high, and there's an expectation that he's to know what to do, but he knows to fix the brain and he knows to fix the heart. He doesn't know, he's not educated in crime. So he's going to make it up as they go. And then there's a whole host of people somewhere in the world who criticize what is being done right now. And they get the opportunity to say, show us you can do better. But they're saying, we're starting from scratch. Context matters. Are we in a space where we can start from scratch? Are we in a space where if we say, let us, man, Bob Marley, and we can't cook, so I don't plant corn and I don't throw it. And if I step on your corn, my thing is, I would have thought that you were going to a good nail tech that can do a pedicure, and you should wear your size. Because if you don't take stitchy advice, then you will get 5 phenomenon 1, phenomenon 2. That's all I'm saying. But let me leave that alone. Just understand the context. If you know that you're not the brightest and you say that, it takes you far away, because you can compromise, you can compensate, but you cannot be pretending or be offended if you're uneducated in a particular way. So if you get basic school education, you're uneducated to primary. If you get primary school education, you're uneducated to secondary. If you complete secondary, you're uneducated to tertiary. And if you are at the tertiary level, you're only educated to the extent of the major that you have done. But you're not an expert all around. You only have the tools to be a blank slate every morning and soak up education and soak up information as a person with a blank slate, like a sponge, learning something new every day and educating yourself. And Kesu said the hardest thing for people of power to do is to admit they do not know. And that's the thing that we understand. To know that you don't know is to tell the truth. And that is why the apology is so sarcastic, and is saying, hey, how dare you call me the wisest man? And while Socrates was making this, born under the clock, say, you need to know him size. I better you say it than me, right? I'm glad you type it. But my people out there, Reggae Global Radio, YouTube, TikTok, work with me. If you know your deficiencies, and especially you can you imagine, like say you're idiot, like me know say me is an idiot, but then me know, and although me I say me is an idiot, there's people out there that is worse than me. Boy, may I tell you, to become is the first define. No. He leaves out the politicians and he says, finally I went to the craftsmen, for I was conscious of knowing practically nothing. It's like you go and say, you're like me, I cannot cook. So you go to the craftsmen because they are the geniuses. And let me go to the place where, like, when I'm trying to tell people how uneducated I am, I say, I can't cook. So I go into the kitchen, Hell's Kitchen at that, to come and cook up something. But I know that when it comes to the kitchen, I know practically nothing. Because you see, when me I fry my water, me make a mean dry pot. I just turn on the stove, leave on the pot. Not even have to put no oil in there, but you get bunion in the bottom of the pot because I don't even know where the water goes. I just think I'm a genius sometimes. But so frying water is a term of art. So if you know how it tastes, kudos to you. So he goes on to say, and I knew that I would find that they had knowledge of many fine things because they're craftsmen. In this I was not mistaken. They knew things I did not know, and to that extent they were wiser than I. But, gentlemen of the jury, the good craftsmen seem to me to have the same fault as the poets, each of them because of his success at his craft. He thought himself very wise in other most important pursuits, and this error of theirs overshadowed the wisdom they had. So that I asked myself, on behalf of the oracle, whether I should prefer to be as I am, with neither their wisdom nor their ignorance, or to have both. The answer I gave myself and the oracle was that it was to my advantage to be as I am. To thine own self be true. To thine own self be true. Yeah. That's what we need to get at. So can you imagine, because you're at the top of craftsmanship, can you imagine? I don't like call names, but can you imagine that you are Usain Bolt? You're the fastest man in the world, or January in or no, and then still thief your money. You never fast there, so to take you out. Them do a nice world record swoop, but you laugh because you never said you were an expert. That's why you went to them. You weren't an expert in investment per se, so you were taking advice. But even then, probably that's why God bless you the way you are, because you were not an expert in that field. But there are those, yes, Tissa Taylor, frying water. That's a whole context matters. We'll have a whole discussion on how to do that. It's an art form. I wish I could tell you how it tastes, but I know that I'm very, very good at frying water. But yes, so as a result of this investigation, gentlemen of the jury, and note that at all times Socrates is addressing the jury. He didn't bother to waste his time to hire a lawyer. He just represented himself, which is his right to do. And he said, I acquired much unpopularity of a kind that is hard to deal with and is a heavy burden. Many slanders came from these people and a reputation for wisdom. For in each case, the bystanders thought that I myself possessed the wisdom that I proved that my interlocutor did not have. What is probable, gentlemen, is that in fact, the God is wise, and that his oracular response meant that human wisdom is worth little or nothing, and that when he says this man, Socrates, he is using my name as an example, as if he had this man among you. Mortals is wisest who, like Socrates, understands that his wisdom is worthless. So even though I continue this investigation as the gods bade me, and I go around seeking out anyone, citizen or stranger, whom I think wise, then if I do not think he is, I come to the assistance of the God and show him that he is not wise. Because of this occupation, I do not have the leisure to engage in public affairs to any extent, nor indeed to look after my own, but I live in great poverty because my service is to God. All right. Put that in context. Exactly. I share that with you, Ingram. So we put that in context now. He's saying, listen, Chinese telephone is a very, very, very dangerous apparatus, because we will call people name and people misrepresent it. So when them say, yo, certain people bad, them bad like you see bad poor like Queenie. Them people they bad like whoever. I see bad man there so and call a name, and it go around like wildfire, and everything that happens in the space is attributed to the bad like Yeah. So as fast as Bolt. So every time people think speed, it is Bolt. And every time a record break, them say a Bolt do it. And so the attribution goes in, and people mix that. People miss examples. People miss the context of some of the things. But most important, the ability to be great in your area of expertise does not make you an expert at life. And many people fail to appreciate that, and that has caused harm, bad harm to the society at large. And I'm saying this in the space as we speak, wherever you are, especially as I address the diaspora, that you are people who had the aptitude, the ability to take yourself to leave this country for a better life. Some of you work hard, some of you have 3, 4, 5 jobs. And then you say, I am doing this with the hopes that one day I can go home to Jamaica and retire. And so whilst I'm out of Jamaica, I need to know what's going on in Jamaica. And so I need a voice. I need to be able to pretty much ensure my interest is being served and there's representation for me. And those who are to do it must be a reflection of you, because representation matters. We must mimic. And even when they speak of juries, they say the jury must be a jury of your peers, whatever that means in spaces where you can't find your peers. But yes, let's put it there and say, well, we need somebody who understands our plight, who is going through it, someone from among us who have our experience and expertise. And what you get or what you end up with is somebody who is not even a diaspora member, because they're not living in the diaspora, they're living in Jamaica. So even as I observe and listen to the conversations, I don't have the experience because I live in Jamaica. I'm a son of Jamaica, and I still live in mama's home because I'm still in Jamaica, if you get what I'm saying. I haven't gone out like members of the diaspora. And then I cannot give expert advice on matters of affairs, because all I can tell you is when I go outside of Jamaica, the KFC is not the same. And when I go to the countries where there are 4 seasons and I buck up in a buck up in a winter and it deal with you proper, context matters. So we are not to give people positions they know nothing of, and when you criticize them and tell them they don't know nothing, them vex. And those who are in place, who are supposed to ensure that's so funny, I just did buck up in and then I'm talking about a bottle of Ensure, but I'm talking about Ensure, not Ensure. You know what I'm saying? Context matters. But anyway, those who are supposed to not be offended, take the criticism because they want your vote and fix it. And so in an ideal world, we have to look and say, but who, if you are not a member of the diaspora, you shouldn't be concerned with their affairs to the point that you disenfranchise a whole slew of people, so much people, and then you think that is acceptable to disenfranchise people and behave like you have the expertise when you don't know the knowledge. You're not wise. So he goes on to say, as a result of this investigation, gentlemen of the jury, I acquired much unpopularity. Does that sound so it sound familiar? When you take up books and you realize that you have people in the walls of history, the canals of history, who would have gone through similar things. I tell you. He says, I acquired much unpopularity of a kind that is hard to deal with and is a heavy burden. Many slanders came from these people, and a reputation for wisdom. For in each case, the bystanders thought that I myself possessed the wisdom that I proved that my interlocutor did not have. What is probable, gentlemen, is that in fact the God is wise, and his oracle's response meant the human wisdom is worth little or nothing. That when he says this man Socrates, he is using me for an example. Furthermore, the young men who follow me around of their own free will, those who have most leisure, the sons of the very rich, take pleasure in hearing people questioned. They themselves often imitate me and try to question others. I think they find an abundance of men who believe they have some knowledge but know little or nothing. The result is that those whom they question are angry, not with themselves but with me. So they say that man Socrates is a pestilential fellow who corrupts the young. If one asks them what he does and what he teaches to corrupt them, they are silent, as they do not know. But as not to appear at a loss, they mention these accusations that are available against all philosophers about things in the sky and things below the earth, about not believing in the gods and making the worse the stronger argument. They would not want to tell the truth. So, hear me out now. Just putting it in context. Good night, good night, good night. And if you're just joining, you're tuned into Context Matters with Isaac. And we are talking about the apology made by Socrates when he was accused of being a corrupter of youth. Accused of as he said, speaking about things in the sky and things below. But the charge, corrupting the youth, is opening the minds of young people, so that when young people see people who behave like them bright and really put them to the test. I can imagine somebody just get up and say, oh, you big and bad. And you say, but what does big and bad mean? And they can't tell you. And they say, you see how you're disrespectful? You challenge me. I tell you, you're big and bad, and I'm the one in authority, and you're trying to embarrass me, because they don't know. And so they make things up as they go, and when challenged, they say, okay, we have to limit your freedom of expression. You can't talk, you can't influence people to think, because poverty is something. If people are suffering from poverty and remain impoverished, they won't have time to think about anything else. Yes, Socrates is the real gadfly. Socrates have 23 baby mother and 22 kids. Real bad man. Of course, if Ninja Man hears that, he will correct, because it has to be the other way around. But you have to be wise to know those things. All right, moving on. So, he goes on and says, let this suffice as a defense the charges of my earlier accusers. After this, I shall try to defend myself against Meletus. But he says that good and patriotic man, as he says he is, and my latter accusers, as these are a different lot of accusers, let us again take up their sworn deposition. It goes something like this. Socrates is guilty of corrupting the young and of not believing in the gods, in whom the city believes, but in other new spiritual things, such as in their charge. Let us examine it point by point. So it's nice when people are bringing charges against you, even in the court of public opinion. They simply have to put up beautiful speaking and put words nice and make it sound like you do something wrong. And everybody saying, them do something wrong. And then they use the ad hominem and them say, well, he did something wrong in the past, or he's done this, so it must be that he's continuing to do wrong. It's a very interesting concept. It's a very interesting idea. So he says that, Socrates goes on to say, he says that I am guilty of corrupting the young, but I say that Meletus is guilty of dealing frivolously with serious matters, of irresponsibly bringing people into court, and of professing to be seriously concerned with things about none of which he has ever cared. And I shall try to prove that this is so. So let me repeat it. They says you're guilty of doing something, but the reality is that they are guilty of dealing frivolously with serious matters, of irresponsibly bringing people into court, and of professing to be seriously concerned with things about none of which he has ever cared. And here's the thing. Which one? I'm guilty of. I don't bring frivolous things to court, because I tell you this: if I complain and carry it to court, when I carry it to court, I usually, anyway, let me leave that alone. I'm just, what is interesting is this. Um, at the opening of court, a judge in Jamaica, I won't say names, but he says, listen, prosecutors have a duty to discontinue prosecution, as in throughout the case, whenever they know they cannot obtain a conviction. That is your duty. That is your charge, so that you don't clog the court, so that you don't deprive somebody of the presumption of innocence. So that, especially if it's a matter where a person's liberty is at stake and they never got bail, you don't keep on putting off. You assess the file and you leg of the man shut. And then he balances it and he says, and defense attorneys ought to exercise the right to advise their client that they shouldn't clog the court with greetings. They shouldn't clog the court with keeping persons' cases in court, knowing that the person is guilty or knowing that the person will likely obtain a conviction. As a defense lawyer, I don't know if I agree with that position, because any card can play when justice is delayed or whatever, or the passage of time. But the balance was struck. And then one wonders, what are the power of judges as the umpire of fairness when this happens? But we have to think about that and say, well, let's look. I see you, Delroy. Time, God and time, in terms of the growth. Continue to share Reggae Global Radio and as well as the global TV platform, YouTube, Instagram, anywhere. Like and share and subscribe, because we're here to learn something with our brand new uneducated self as we wake up every morning, because we do not know everything. We are not the holders of wisdom, save to accept that in the area of knowing we don't know it all. We are wise there. Now, what Socrates says is, in his effort to prove it, he says, come here and tell me, Melita, surely you consider it of the greatest importance that our young men be as good as possible. And he says, indeed, I do. So in every society, and put in context, no matter how you rise individually, we are charged with ensuring that the young people, men and women, become as good as possible. That is the best versions of themselves. And Mellitus agrees, indeed I do. He says, come then, tell the jury who improves them. You obviously know, in view of your concern, you may say you have discovered the one who corrupts them, namely me, and you bring me here and accuse me to the jury. Come inform the jury and tell them who it is. You see, Mellitus, that you are silent and know not what to say. Does this not seem shameful to you and a sufficient proof of what I say, that you have not been concerned with any of this? Tell me, my good sir, who improves our young men? The laws? That is not what I'm asking, but what person who has knowledge of the laws to begin with? These jurymen, Socrates. He's answering. And then he says, how do you mean, Mellitus? Are these able to educate the young and improve them? And he says, certainly. Socrates says, all of them, or some, but not others. And the response from Mellitus is, all of them. Very good. By Hera, you mention a great abundance of benefactors, but what about the audience? Do they improve the young or not? And he says they do too. So what about the members of the council? The councillors also. But Mellitus, what about the assembly? Do members of the assembly corrupt the young, or do they all improve them? And he says they improve them. All the Athenians, it seems, make the young into fine good men, except me, and I alone corrupt them. Is that what you mean? That is the most definitely what I mean. So you see, his accuser says, listen, everybody, all Alice swear sell crab brother hero circle, improve young people. But you see, when it comes to the people who they do not like, they are the corrupters of men. And Socrates is the only person in all of Athens where he come from that is corrupting the youth by interaction. So he says, you condemn me to a great misfortune. Tell me, does this also apply to horses, do you think? That all men improve them and one individual corrupts them? Or is it quite the contrary true? One individual is able to improve them, or very few, namely the horse breeders, whereas the majority, if they have horses and use them, corrupt them? Is that not the case? Keisha say, and it alone was sell at soul at food at Hero Circle, and every food there was affected by the nastiness. Context: we're talking about Socrates' accusation of corruption of youth, and Keisha find herself using ad hominem on poor Alice and detracting from where we're going in terms of finding the logic that when you're accused of doing something, like oh yes. Where you're accused of doing something and the practicality of what they're saying you're accused of is just completely absurd. And so you know the agendas behind it. And every day you wake up, you find in other spaces people will use adjectives to describe you, to say how they feel about you because they're mad at you of other things, and deprive you of even basic assistance, basic human courtesies are deprived because of how people feel emotionally based on what they're hearing. And go to find who your accusers are. And that is important. That is important to have an understanding or finding the context or the meaning. So he says, you condemn me to a great misfortune. Tell me, does this apply to the horses you think and those who train him? And he says, you have made it sufficiently obvious, Mellitus, that you have never had any concern of our youth. You show your indifference clearly, that you have given no thought to the subjects about which you bring me to trial. And this, notice, what I'm saying is that context matters. Because people will try you and have little regard. They don't even care about the public. They just know they don't like you, and this is their opportunity to come at you. When you speak the truth, they use it and to bring their agendas across. And in doing so, they take advantage of a situation and the people. Because in this situation for Socrates being accused of corrupting the youth, the wisest man possibly at the time, the professor for Plato who taught Aristotle, who is responsible for bringing us Greek philosophy at the time, is being charged of doing that which he was put on earth to do. And the agenda that came behind it. One is to take note of that. Now, he says, come now, do you accuse me here of corrupting the young and making them worse deliberately or unwillingly? And the response was, deliberately. And what follows, Mellitus? Are you so much wiser at your age than I am at mine that you understand that wicked people always do some harm to their closest neighbors while good people do them good? But I have reached such a pitch of ignorance that I do not realize this. namely that if I make one of my associates wicked, I run the risk of being harmed by him, so that I do such a great evil deliberately, as you say? I do not believe you, Meletus, and I do not think anyone else will. Either I do not corrupt the young, or if I do, it is unwillingly. And you are lying in either case. Now, if I corrupt them unwillingly, the law does not require you to bring people to court for such unwilling wrongdoings, but to get hold of them privately, to instruct them and exhort them. For clearly, if I learn better, I shall cease to do what I'm doing unwillingly. So you, however, have avoided my company and were unwilling to instruct me, but you bring me here, where the law requires one to bring those who are in need of punishment, not of instruction. And I put to you, my public, when we speak about context matters, if in matters of public importance, are we in the process of making great men or better men, or are we in the process of destroying people? For it is that your seniors would find you and destroy you and bring you to the law and the place where punishment is there for you, rather than carry you in private and instruct you, give you instruction and guidance to become better, to become wiser. But when they are agendas, like some people say, that will never happen for your competitors or your enemies. So, and gentlemen and ladies of the jury, Stardust said the people that were Jamaica need some money. I'm trying to find the context in that, because it's Stardust saying that I am the bank and therefore I am the preventer of money flowing in the Jamaican space, as I teach about the context. One wonders. So anyway, and I raise Alice's name, and now people can't stop talking about Alice. One wonders. Joe says, I am against prison, so this is my forte. Okay. I will study the context when I rewatch this later. So he says, then by those very gods to whom we are talking, Mellitus, make this clearer to me and to the jury. I cannot be sure whether you meant that I teach the belief that there are some gods, and therefore I myself believe that there are gods, and am not altogether an atheist, nor am I guilty of that. Not, however, the gods in whom the city believes, but others, and this is the charge against me, that they are others. Or whether you mean that I do not believe in gods at all, and that this is what I teach to others. This is what I mean, that you do not believe in gods at all. So you are a strange fellow, Miletus. Why do you say this? Do I not believe as other men do, that the sun and the moon are gods? No, by Zeus, jurymen, for he says that the sun is stone and the moon is earth. So, I know this is heavy stuff. And I am going to invite persons to go to the apology and to read the apology, because it is a man who did not take a lawyer, because he already concluded that not too much bright people walking around. And so he went and he represented himself. And of course, I can tell you this. The man who represents himself is a fool. But Socrates was here saying he wasn't wise. So maybe he was proving that he was a fool by representing himself. Because what happened in the end of it all is that he was found guilty by the jury. Judge for your belief, especially when it doesn't match up with the masses' belief. Oh. Yes, that is true, Cynthia B. Yeah, what I wanted to get at was the fact that there are some questions that I want you to think about, even though we never finish it. Socrates ultimately was found guilty, and having found guilty, sentenced to death. And a lot of times when people are adjudicated guilty, the idea of adjudicating guilty is to clearly send a public message that you are tainted, you are damaged, and you ought to be rejected and removed from society. For anything, if you're hungry and you climb a tree, actually go up in the tree and eat the mango, they treat you the same as if you go and raid the mango, and then you're guilty of a criminal offense and you're judged that way. So even when you're not in the criminal court and people hear that you're guilty, remember, you never go court. They associate the guilt with criminality. And when you're painted in that light, which is one of the reasons why the politicians are so upset about what the Integrity Commission is doing. And because even where that investigation yields a prosecution, if there is a prosecution, like today, they had put the man in the media. The man and his wife build a house, and when you build a house, it's for somewhere to live or something like that. But it was not, the limitation had passed, and so even if it was illegal, it's the time to prosecute is gone. But then you leave that in the space, and in the space, the people hear about what was done, and you're not going to be adjudicated guilty, but in the court of public opinion, you have done something wrong. But I'm just going to put this out there so people understand, because I'm a thinking human being and I invite you to think. In the law, I'm contexting us, so get with me. Tissa said he was not an expert in criminal defense. All right. Yeah, I don't want to miss it. So I want to tell you this. To give context, and I hope that I remember what I was going to tell you. Yes, in the law, if it is that they were investigating this man for a particular thing, just bear me out. And at the end of their investigation, because the idea of the investigation and the publication of the person's name is with a view for prosecution. Now, when you do what you do and there can be no prosecution, because, for instance, the limitation has passed, then, like Socrates is saying Miletus did, was to bring him to the court to frivolously prosecute him, knowing that the result would not be the guilt through the law, but through the court of public opinion, which is reputational damage. And it's a tricky thing, because we live if you are Jamaican or if you're anywhere in the world, there is a mechanism called adverse possession. And in that place, and I just want to make a quick part, if people are interested, we'll talk about it another time. With adverse possession, what it is the law is saying that land is supposed to be used by people. So you might be fortunate because your forefathers are actually the slave masters, and so you have acres and acres of land that you'll never use. Or you just might be the Maroons and own the whole of the Blue Mountain top to the point you never know, from Montego Bay through Trelawney, through the Cockpit, St. Elizabeth, and your front gate is right up at Castleton. I don't know. You might be blessed like that. But for those of us who don't bless like that and might have to get a piece of land and we don't have no money, we squat. Now, squatting is illegal from year 1 right up until year 12. So the idea of adverse possession, which is a legal requirement, is legal to do, is that you enter the land and squat and hope that you get there for 12 years. If they catch you before, you say, you got me. And you can negotiate to pay a little rent, or you can bad them up and say, no, come off, because you're adversely possessing and you do it right to the end, and then they have to go to court and use the law. If people are using the law, then morally people can't say, I'm upset that, see, them never doing bad. I saw some of the comments today about Popcorn where they were saying that, him only pay $6,000. Why him never got prison for disrespecting? But the law says that you only pay a little $1,000 for cursing a bad word. But unless you're a noble person in a noble profession and you quote some bad word, then your fine is $520,000 for quoting language. So you see, and it's not a criminal offense, but in the court of public opinion. So I leave it there about the context. And when you experience that, the good thing, I'm glad we can able to laugh, but the key thing is to talk about the squatter, because you have a legal right to pass some land. And in the Bible, them say you walk around the walls of Jericho till it fall down. 7 days. If you want something, walk around it. Never say you must purchase it. So you might see a nice little piece of land up at Castleton that nobody don't know, because the people are in the diaspora. And you just go up there, you just go and deal with it, farm a little bit and thing, and then 12 years pass and it's yours as of right. And when it becomes yours, people have a problem. Yes, say BCA say settlers versus squatters. One in the same. But I call them adverse possessors. And when you adverse possess it and you get it, it is yours. Yusuf Ben. Okay, Dr. Yusuf Ben. Yeah, so that is it. Keisha, I'm just putting things into context. It's a matter for conversation. It's a matter for everybody. But people, I must say this to you. Of all the times that I've been sitting here I'm feeling great. I'm excited for sharing this apology with you. And I may very well have to continue. So I'll put you on notice now some of the discourse in terms of trying to find out the attributes. Intention, deference, agendas. These are all tools that one has to see, especially when we're negotiating. Evidence and language is going to be important. Separating the court of public opinion from the law is a heavy burden that many people carry, because sometimes when like, for instance, the Chief Justice in Jamaica, he makes it his duty to just use the law. And when he passes his judgment, there will be some people who is happy and people who is dissatisfied. But when we put things into context, we can't be selective. We cannot be going around saying that Jamaica is a murderous society and that the young people are lost and they're criminal minded and wicked to be killing people, and then law enforcement kill a 14-year-old, allegedly. But then everything is allegedly in the Jamaican space. But we can't want better if that is how we treat it, and we silent. When they came for us, and I add to the poem to close the show to say, when they came for the 14-year-old, they said nothing. So if they come for the 5-year-old next week, it's nothing. Or the 1-year-old. Or just do abortion to prevent people from being born. When they came there and nobody says anything, then what? So I will see you guys next week, same time. Invite a friend. Tell somebody class is going on, and we will learn something new and change the narrative, because it is important. We're in 2024, you know. People are so awoke. We are woke, and times are changing. Globalization is making things different, and life is different because of it. So I wish you all the best for 2024, and I'm gonna see you next week. January has like 10 more weeks left in it, so it's a long January, especially as Stardon say the Jamaican people want money. It's everywhere in the world. January is the longest month, and so while you survive, turn on your yard then and just watch some Context Matters, and tune into the Pod the Draw TV, tune into Wade TV, tune into Reasoning with Ratigan on Saturday. Find something to do. Learn something, educate yourself. And when you're tired, get some music. Do some music. Be like me. I met the most interesting artist, young person in the world. Joe. His name is Joe. I want to say Joe Davis. Joe Davis. He plays 13 instruments. And he's gonna win a Grammy one day. And he's gonna be the biggest thing out of Jamaica. And it was an honor to meet him, and I hope that he gets the support from the music and that he doesn't have to struggle to share his talent with the world. I will find his music and I will share it with you, but I was impressed by the God-given talent. And when David said to the chief musicians a psalm of David, they included Joe Davis. So if he hears this, I'm using my platform to everybody, to an amazing young man, only 21. And he's going to be as great as Prince and Michael Jackson and everybody else in terms of musical contribution. And I would have seen that God has blessed this young man and in the care of his parents. And I hope he gets the support out of Jamaica to be the greatest thing. So I just wanted to say that here because I know it's going to happen. Blessings, everybody. Context matters. It's all in life. And me da boss another song and boss a DJ, but nobody asked. So that is it for this week. Blessings. We out here.